this is Dan Smith of DPS Legal Counsel. Welcome to today's episode, video and podcast of Legal Scrubs, where I talk about business and other issues of interest and importance to either solo or small group practice physicians. And today's episode is going to focus on estate planning for physicians. Just like everybody, physicians need to take seriously putting an estate plan in place to protect their families, their children, their spouses, their legacy, what wealth they have been able to accumulate over a lifetime of practice, so that the ones that they care about the most, the ones they love, can get what the physician who has passed away wants to leave to his or her family. And so let's just start talking about estate planning for physicians today. There are several aspects to estate planning for physicians that I'd like to focus on. One is taxes. Everyone's always concerned about what the impact might be of either state or federal taxes on a person's estate when they die. There are a couple of bits of good information and good news for anyone who might be concerned about taxes. First is, if you are a Tennessee resident, when you die, the Tennessee legislature has repealed the Tennessee inheritance tax. So there are no state taxes, inheritance taxes on your estate when you die. The second bit of good news for all Americans, and including Tennessee physicians, is that the federal estate tax exemption amount has been raised to a very, very high level. So very few people are impacted by the federal estate tax. At the present time, and it changes from year to year because there's an inflation component to how much is exempted. But right now, this year in 2020, if someone were to pass away in 2020, the federal estate tax exemption amount is over $11.5 million. And so if your estate is less than that, you don't have to worry about federal estate taxes. And if you're married and you properly plan and use what's called the portability election, you can actually shelter twice that amount, or over $23 million in value from federal estate taxes. Now, the federal estate tax exemption amount is scheduled to sunset back to a lower level after the year 2025. But as of now, the federal estate tax is really of very little concern to most people. But you might want to talk to your estate planning professional, your attorney, about the impact of that sunset provision and look at your specific situation. Okay, so that's it on taxes. Now, another thing that people sometimes ask about, particularly physicians, because we live in a very litigious society where lawsuits are common, is what should I do about asset protection? Now, a good part of any estate plan for a physician or anybody else that's in an area of business or practice or profession where there is a good chance of being the target of a lawsuit is to take into account not only how you dispose of your assets at death, but how you protect your assets during your lifetime. And that's where asset protection comes in. There are a number of ways that a physician can undertake asset protection. One of those is to set up what's called an investment services trust. That is available in the state of Tennessee, and it's a very good vehicle for protecting assets in this state. Again, this is something you would want to discuss with your attorney about the possibility or whether it would be appropriate in your case to look into an investment services trust. Okay, taxes, asset protection. Third part of estate planning for physicians is to look at what assets you have and how they're titled. when you're starting an estate plan, you're going to look at what your assets are. Have they appreciated in value since the time you acquired them? What your liabilities are, who your prospective heirs or beneficiaries would be. You would want to look at your life insurance. You would want to look at your bank accounts and investment accounts, and you want to make sure that they're, for example, with life insurance and with bank accounts or investment accounts, make sure they're titled the way you want them to be titled. For example, if you decide that you would like to leave a large gift to a trust or to your directly to children, but all your assets are titled in the name of a spouse or someone or a business or something like that, then the titling of that asset, that account, is going to trump the estate plan that you would have rather otherwise set in effect. So, in other words, you can't leave assets to someone if they've already been titled a different way. So, a bank account that passes upon death to a spouse, a bank account that passes upon death to a nephew or a niece or someone like that, the asset would pass at death the way that it's titled, so that you couldn't change that or vary that by your will. So in doing your estate plan, and when you're looking at your non-medical practice assets, you want to make sure they're titled correctly and consistently with what you want to accomplish. Now, I do want to go back to one thing that I probably should have mentioned when I was talking about taxes. If you have property that has increased in value or is expected to increase in value between now and when you may pass away, you may not want to give those assets away during your lifetime. A lot of people think that maybe what I should do is I have a piece of real estate and I want to make sure my children get it, so I want to leave it to them now before I die. And that may not be the best thing to do, because if you bought a piece of property years and years and years ago for a relatively small amount and it's now worth a relatively large amount, if you gift that to your children, when they sell it, they're going to have a large capital gains tax bill that comes due, because when you gift property that has increased in value, like real estate, the person you give it to takes over your basis in the property, your tax basis in the property. So if they were to sell it, they would get that big capital gain that they would have to pay income taxes on. Whereas if you kept that appreciated property in your estate and it passed to your children upon death, the basis of that property gets automatically stepped up to its value at the date of your death. And so if you had a piece of real estate that you bought for $100 and it's worth $1,000 now, if you give it away, they're going to have a $900 capital gain. If you pass away owning it, they're going to take over the basis of $1,000 when you die, and so if they sold the next day, they'd have no capital gain. So it's important when you have appreciated property to think about how you're going to leave it to your heirs. I just wanted to come back to that for a second. Now, we've talked about taxes, we've talked about asset protection, we've talked a little bit about assets, non-medical assets, and how they should be titled and what you should do with them if they're appreciated in value. I want to talk really lastly about your medical assets, your practice, the value of your practice. If you are in a solo or small group practice, you need to start thinking about your business succession plan really sooner rather than later, because over a course of a career, you will likely build up a very strong value in the asset, which is your practice. And if you simply ignore business succession issues and pass away without having done something to find a successor to you to take over your practice, then not only is your family going to be left with a lot of red tape and headaches dealing with how to shut down your practice, deal with medical records, deal with all the issues that you would have when the physician who runs the practice is no longer there, but you're going to leave a very valuable asset on the table, and maybe it has to be shuttered and dissolved, the business, because you didn't take proactive steps to look into business succession for your practice. So while you're healthy and you're at least thinking about retiring in, say, 5 or 10 years, you really need to start acting proactively to find and develop a business succession plan. Find a successor to take over your practice. It may be someone you bring into your practice. It may be someone in your community that might want to purchase your practice, but you need to talk to your legal advisor about business succession, because you likely have an extremely valuable asset in your practice, and you don't want it to go to zero when you die because you haven't taken steps to protect its value during your lifetime by developing a business succession plan. Now, I did a blog post about business succession for solo and small group practice doctors and dentists back on November the 19th. That blog post is on my website. If you go to the tab for blog, you can find that blog post November the 19th. I may repost it today or in the next day or so, because I think it's very timely, and I think it's very important that physicians take seriously this component of estate planning. Not only just looking at their assets and liabilities for what's going to happen in their will, but looking at that medical asset, their practice, and determining what's going to be their business succession plan. So that's it. We've talked about taxes, we've talked about asset protection, we've talked about titling assets and what happens to appreciated property, and we've talked about business succession. Those are all important key things to think about if you are a physician and you're looking to undertake some estate planning. And you really need to do that. Everybody needs to do this. You owe it to your family, you owe it to the next generation that you love and want to protect, to make sure that you take care of good estate planning while you're healthy and you're ready to work on this. So anyway, I hope that helps. If you have any questions or want to get in touch, you can reach me at dpslegalcounsel.com. Go to the website. You'll see a link for either a phone call to me or scheduling a meeting. I would be glad to talk to you about estate planning, asset protection, or any other business issue affecting your solo or small group practice, medical practice. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of DPS Legal Counsel's Legal Scrubs series. Thanks again.